All right, welcome to the show. We're very excited today to have Daniel Murray, LinkedIn extraordinaire, owner of the Millennial Marketing. Did I say that right? As marketing Millennials?
Marketing Millennials, but
Marketing Millennials podcast and LinkedIn group. For those who don't know about that, that group has 500. That's above 500. It's either chasing, it's creeping on 500,000, or it's like slightly above 500,000.
we just hit 500,000 a couple of days ago. So
Yeah, like no big deal. No big deal. And so here, Tommy put us in touch. And I don't know if you knew this before we started talking, but I think we had our first conversation, and I had done 0 unpaid social media in my life. I'd done like a few paid ads on Facebook that did well. And Tommy was just like, you should talk to the best LinkedIn guy there is to get some strategic tips on how you should approach this. And man, your advice has been so solid that I just wanted to have you on this podcast, because I feel like, so people who know me, they're like, you're the last guy who would ever be doing social media, especially organic. Like maybe ads, but like direct response, but like social media, organic, no way. And then they see me posting frequently. I explain the machine that I built with Tommy, and they're just like, that's amazing. So I think more and more people are going to want to do this, right? Because like there's this phenomenon, which we discussed, of a dearth of content on LinkedIn in particular. Content creators. And there's all these eyeballs, and it's morphing into, like, I think these were your words, like little stories that people want to read when they're drunk at midnight. Were you the one who said that?
no, but that's a good analogy.
Yeah, no, it's like it went from this like really serious thing to like bro text, like trick me a little bit, maybe like make me laugh, like whatever. And then, I got put in touch with Tommy because like I've just been obsessed with Triple Whale's social media presence, and their brand is like so casual and funny. Your stuff is hilarious, and obviously you get a ton of engagement, right? So anyway, I just wanted to like, just talk about all this stuff, right? Like, how do you get to be the guy? The same thing I asked Chase Diamond last week, right? Like, how do you get to be the guy that is Chase Diamond with 80,000 e-com or whatever it is, 100,000 Twitter followers about e-com email? Like, how does it happen? When did that happen? So, yeah, opening question is to you, what is the arc of your career that brought you to this place where you are controlling such a massive audience? And I guess as a short follow-up, 110,000 personal followers and 500,000 brand followers. So like, what was the career first? And then which of those like kind of happened first or whatever?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I think a lot of people think you just start social media, because a lot of people who are starting social media now get a lot of traction because they've seen what other people are doing, and they're just repeating the formula. But when I started, I think when I was actually in marketing ops the beginning of my career, but I always had this luck with social media. I would always be an early adopter on social media platform. I always wanted, I had a food account that I tested once. I had a bunch of different accounts, and they were just not very successful failures. But I think they all taught me a little bit more about social media. And then I finally was in a role in one of a startup, and I was like, okay, we should do organic LinkedIn. And nobody believed me we should do organic LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, being a marketing ops guy I'm like, okay, I'll go test organic LinkedIn myself. And this was for mid 2019, so before the pandemic and anything. So I started just posting, and I was posting some random stuff, and it was getting some traction, but it was getting more traction than I've ever seen, because I had like 1,000 followers and I was getting 3,000 impressions. And I was
but what define random stuff?
I would post like a marketing post, and then I post
okay. So it wasn't subject aligned. It was just like, you were
it wasn't very niche. Yeah, it was very niche.
And this is off of your personal account.
Yeah, it wasn't very niche. I posted like, it was we did Halloween in our office, and then
Yeah.
I would post a marketing post, and then I realized, okay, if some people are following me for this, some people are following me for that, and I was like, I just need to be super niche and just start talking about marketing. And that's when I started seeing it increase. But also what I was started doing is like, there's a lot of unscalable things I did at first, which I think really helped me is one, I would comment 40 to 50 times a day on
Yeah.
other marketing influencers, my stuff. So my name would be in their posts. I would respond to every single comment. I'll say now I'm not good at that, but I was
Right.
better at that at the
Well,
beginning.
I mean, your stuff is insane. Good. I don't know how you would even do that, right? Like, but you would have
Yeah.
to hire a staff or something. So like,
Yes.
serious.
Yeah. So I would do the very unscalable things, which
Yeah.
which helped me at the beginning. And then the Marketing Millennials came out of a podcast that I wanted to create because I just couldn't come up with enough marketing content ideas. And I say the best way to get content is have a conversation with another marketer, and then we can come up with content together. And then I was like, oh shoot, I should create a LinkedIn page because this is going to get annoying if I just post my podcast stuff on my personal page. I should have another distribution channel for this.
Yeah.
And then what I used to grow Marketing Millennials is I started like using Daniel Murray, like go follow Marketing Millennials, blah, blah, here's my podcast. And then after a while, I did this technique that it was very accidental why it worked. But what I did was I would take people's tweets of people, because I was started being really active on Twitter, and I would take people's tweets that I wanted to be guests on my podcast.
Yep.
And I would post them on the Marketing Millennials because I knew they weren't active on LinkedIn, and they would reach out to me like, thank you for so much for posting. And then that's how I got my first like few bigger guests on the Marketing Millennials by doing that. But also what I saw is like these tweets were getting so much traction on LinkedIn and nobody was doing that. So I just kept the same formula, and then it just like started this rapid viral spiral.
Yeah, which is one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that Tommy told me, like, he's like, this is so dumb, but like, if a tweet is going viral from someone who is a hitter on Twitter in your sort of niche, a lot of times you can copy the tweet, hashtag them, say like 100% exclamation point, and the algo seems to love it, you know? So like maybe that's,
to that point, like people think this is like, this has been happening for years and years.
Right.
Like people had been doing that on Instagram for a long time. People have been doing it on Twitter for a long time. People are doing it, taking Reddit posts, putting on Twitter. So it's not like a new phenomenon.
Right.
It's just like nobody was doing it.
It's new to me.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably new. So like the audience for this is meant to be founders of like big Shopify stores, right? So like a lot of them, I feel like there's this moment where they're seeing people like me who are just working with people like Tommy, getting advice from people like you who know how the machine works, and then creating this machine that's just generating content that the algorithm seems to like. So it's just a really, like, let me tell you an example. So I was resisting doing this for a long time because I literally didn't know someone like Tommy. I didn't know someone like you I read the Dave Gerhardt book. I'm like, oh, like the founder brand thing. That's very compelling, right? Like the argument that it's easier to connect with a person than it is with a logo. It's just so, of course it is, right? Like we're sitting here talking to each other with video. It's like, people are going to listen to this for an hour and they're going to feel like they know both of us. So, but like, I'm just not someone that's like willing to start posting knowing nothing about the game, because there's people who play the game full time. And like the games that I play full time, I know that I'm way better at people than people who just like hop in on, their day one. So I just think this conversation is interesting to people because I was so resistant to doing it. But then as I was digging to try to figure out Triple Whale's system, how they were doing it, Tommy was like dropping these hints and I'm like, that can't be true. Like literally I was just like, okay, fine. Like maybe. I spent an hour and a half writing my first post. So proud of it. right? Like it was this real thing that happened to me at the Triple Whale Mastermind. You know, it was an interesting story. Like I was interviewing this dude for Fireside Chat. I said what our brand did, and then I got harassed for 30 minutes and they didn't let the guy speak. And I like made a whole post about it, wrote it kind of how I thought it should be written because I'd like watched this other webinar or whatever, like, 10 comments or whatever. And then Tommy goes week one and like does this Twitter screenshot strategy, and like it gets like 1,000 engagements or something like that. And I was just like, okay, I surrender. Like I'm done trying to write text for this. And then now the system we have now is I come in Monday morning, Tommy has like 7 hooks for me. I have this view that we discussed where I think there's this power in video that is underappreciated in general. If you can crank out video and you're good on the medium, and like, I have had some success with paid ads and video in the past. I just want to be doing it because like, like I'm doing like 2 longer form video things a week. And then we're doing 7, what would be called like the TikTok video or short form video that we're having edited and like Hormozi style, putting whatever. And like, get 500 of those, make a TikTok account. It's just like, eventually I think there's this huge power to it. And we've got it now working to where Tommy's got hooks for me. I come in and write the bullets, I record them, and then he makes it to where it would actually like work on LinkedIn by whatever his interpretation of that is as someone who lives in a game. So, if you're listening to this, that's probably a decent strategy, right? Work with someone who knows the game rather than like just start kind of like posting on day one.
But I would clarify too. Like, I think some people should just start the game. I mean, they should have an idea of who they want to be and stuff like that. But it's just like you can't like hop into a workout, like your first workout, and expect to be like, I am in very good shape already
Totally.
because I have a good trainer. Like,
Yeah. Right.
it's more like, it's like, you have to have those little like hard couple of posts and hard couple of like writing and hard couple idea things before you get to a certain. Some people get lucky and like are naturally like fit and could go in the gym and start busting out reps, and you're like, how did you just do that? But not everybody's like that. Some people have to get those repetitions before they can get to their first good quality post. And I don't like people just feeling discouraged that they can't go and be like, just try a couple of times, because nobody's going to see it if it doesn't be successful. That's what the power of social media is. Like, first, people won't remember, and 2, like, if it's not good, the algorithm normally doesn't pick it up, and then nobody sees it. So
yeah. And I mean, I keep referencing this conversation with Chase, but it was largely about the same thing, just on different medium. I think to your point, his biggest point of emphasis was, he's like, look, I've been doing this for 6 years. No one gave a rat's ass until 24 months ago. My mom was the only person reading any of it. Point number 2. And he's like, at some point, it just like, I got good enough at it. Like there was enough sort of like wind behind it, and it started really working. People cared. Point number 2, content creation is a muscle. And what I do want to emphasize with my system is like, now, like I'm creating 18 pieces of content per week, which are actually being generated by me. So Tommy's taking a video that I made with bullets that I made with a subject that he recommended, and then he's writing text of it. Mason is taking work in public videos that I'm making and posting on YouTube, and he's making a newsletter out of it for Friday. He's also synthesizing 7 of the videos that we made for the week into a strategy piece. So like, the idea of this, to me, being someone who is just laser focused on like whatever I was doing before, it was very daunting. Like, where does this all even come from? But like, to Chase's point, it's a muscle. Once you start doing it, like I'm like riding my e-bike home and thinking of ideas for like the work in public thing, or like, oh, like this conversation I had, it could be really relevant for a strategy piece or whatever. And, we're just doing it, right? Like 18 pieces of from 0 to 18, like that's probably not the recommended amount of action to take, but like I have devoted 4 hours on Monday morning every single week, and it's been 8 weeks now that I just come in and do it because my calendar's full the whole rest of the time and like super open on Monday morning, to sitting down and just like creating, like publishing. Another thing I want to add is you can't just do that Twitter thing either, right? Because like, A, it's not going to work, and B, it's not allowing you to niche down into what you want people to actually be learning from you and like be known as, right? So like Tommy phrases it as like, we're going to do like 2 awareness posts, 5 educational posts. And for me, it's about very specifically email, SMS, and like abandonment. And then there's the sort of work in public like this. So like the way I view my content business, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. It's like, I have one line of content that I'm creating for potential customers someday. And that's related to the nature of what our product does and like the type of company we sell to. So it's all direct to consumer email and SMS marketing. Then I have another line that's work in public, which is like a glimpse to the inside of this company that's like growing like crazy. And it's exposing, really opening the kimono in a mega way, trying to get people to understand who I'm trying to recruit, like what's going on here, how we approach things, how we're different than other companies, like blah, 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 blah. It's aimed entirely at like people we're trying to hire. Like, do you think that's a sound approach? Like there's these 2 totally different things. I can post them in different places. I post the work in public on my company page because like, I know that we reach out to people, they go to retention.com's company page. First thing they see, huge capital letters, retention.com 2023 plans, excruciating details on 2022 accomplishments, 2023 details, and then me like explaining a 10-minute video, right? What's your thought there?
I think I'll go back to everything that I say to people. Everything on social media is what the intention of the person is. So I think for your intention, that's exactly what I would be approaching on.
Right.
Like some attention, like I say is like, I want to take my social media audience to an email newsletter, and then the email newsletter is my funnel to my business. Some approaches like my social is my.
And by the way,
intention.
is that your approach? Because I see after you post a link to the newsletter.
Yeah, at first that was my approach. My first approach was like, people think of social media very like, I'll go back to this. The problem with social media that a lot of people make this big mistake is that they don't separate social media in separate goals. They say, social media has to produce this much amount of revenue, and if it doesn't hit this amount of revenue, they either stop or they start doing bad behaviors in social media. The first goal when you start your social media is to see you successful. Is my followers growing? Are they the right type of followers? And am I getting engagement? Once you start getting that, then you could say, hey, my followers are growing. I'm getting good engagement. Now let's focus on how could I take those engagements and turn them into whatever I want to do next with them, whether it's I want to take them on a new email newsletter. I want to take them to convert on my website. I want them to read my blog, whatever you want them to do. But a lot of people say when they start are trying to get so fast to get people off the site. And it's like, you have to cultivate trust on the platform before you start asking stuff. So that's one thing. 2 things I think also what you're doing that I think is very smart is that you have to lean on the medium that you're best at when you start creating content. And your medium is video. Some people is written words, some people are imagery, some people. So if you lean on that, that's a great way to get started, because you could take a video and do what you're doing and chop it up into a newsletter and stuff. The third point I'll make is also like, it's always great to create one big pillar of content, which you're doing, like a podcast, a newsletter, or something like that, and then chop it up into multiple social media posts. So then if you want to create more social media ideas, you start with a big piece of content, and then you take what you're doing and chopping up to several posts. But the approach you're doing is build in public on your personal side instead of so people could understand the journey. And this is probably like understand behind the scenes of your company. And then on your other page, I want to grow my following. One is the intention, and the other one is I'm trying to build trust at the same time. So I think you need to have some sort of post that's getting you more followers.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like if your followers are not growing, it's still good. Like that's also with attention. Like a lot of people come to me and say, I want to grow my following.
Right.
And then I'm like, do you want to do these things to grow your following? And they're like, no, I don't want to do these things. And I'm like, well, you're going to still grow your following by posting every single day,
Right.
doing good stuff, but you might not grow at the rate you want to grow because you're going to grow you're very niche and only a very small amount of people are going to care about that. So you're just going to drop in a couple more people, which is fine. That's a good approach, but a lot of people see like numbers and they're like, okay, for me, I want to grow the biggest amount of following so I can get the most amount of attention, be top of mind all the time. So when everybody thinks of marketing, they think of the marketing millennials, they think of Daniel Murray. And then when they think about the marketing millennials, now they're thinking about, oh, does he have a podcast, a newsletter? And that's where they get, so I call my LinkedIn like my Costco sampler.
Yeah.
And I call like my other part, like you could go buy, have the full meal if on my newsletter and my podcast.
Yeah. I mean, not to bring it back to Chase again, but I thought he's like, copywriting is the widest audience that I get. So I think about my reach and my audience growth posts as being the copywriting ones that I write about. And then he's like, the people that I'm selling to are e-commerce email marketers. So I have, I'm working on my niche in that. And then he's like, the people that absolutely love me, they're going to sit here and watch us talk for 45 minutes on a podcast. So he's like, I have just found that this one subject I can talk about and it's going to help me grow my reach. So like all that is to say, I think I'm listening to what you're saying about like saying to somebody, do you want to do this, this, and this? If you don't, you're going to stay super niche. Like maybe there's a tangential subject that you can start talking about that just touches 10 times more people that is slightly less niche than the exact thing that you're talking about that could help actually get this wider net, you know?
And I
So
also
like,
think a lot of people, what they do is when they write about their niche, they are so super specific that only people in their niche would get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes all you have to do is just take your niche and like make it so simple that more people understand what you're talking about. And a lot of people just don't know how to do that. They just write like an email marketer will understand this. So I'm writing like this, but like, how could I teach email marketing to my mom? And if my mom understands this, then more people would understand this. And then more people will start liking my content. So that's also what people don't do is like, they don't take it to the simplest form because they think it doesn't come off as expertise. But like,
right.
first of all, I also have this thing is like, just think about how you consume social media. It's so fast. Like a lot of these posts are just so thought provoking that you just don't have time to just like engage with it.
Right.
It's so much detail.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you could simplify it in the simplest forms to get someone to like actually like understand it quickly while they're on a walk with their dog or on the treadmill or on their e-bike, on their phone, like whatever, like they can, it's a lot of things is just taking their subject and just simplifying it even further down the fun.
I think that's incredible. I think that's super important, especially for people sitting on the outside of the game. Like I want to be perceived as smart. Like that's just something that, you know, I'm kind of embarrassed if I'm not or whatever, right? Like that's part of my identity with the people that I'm going after. And like embracing this concept that like with social media, people may not want to just spend a ton of brain power to like figure out whatever thing you're trying to like convey as you're like trying to make yourself perceived as smart. I mean, that I think is a very valuable lesson. And an example that popped in my head when you were saying that is a tweet that we reposted from you. And like, I may be messing the wording up slightly, but the essence of it is there's no other point than this. The essence of this tweet was marketing is to make sales easier. You know what tweet I'm talking about? Like it's something that it crushed on Twitter. When we reposted it, it absolutely crushed. And it's like, I almost think it's like social media. This is my observation, not understanding the machine. Tell me if you think I'm off. It's like, there are these kind of tribes that people are loosely associated with. and you can make these statements that will just resonate so deeply with that tribe at almost like a religious level, right? So like that statement, marketing is to make sales easier. It's like, if I'm a marketer, I'm like, that's what these salespeople need to know, man. Like, get it through their head, like thumbs up, right? Like in the same way, it's like Bitcoin is good, right? Like Bitcoin is a religion. Like I could just like, you look at Michael Saylor's posts, he's doing these tweets that are just making this like, it's almost like for a Christian, like Jesus Christ is good, right? Like if you posted that, people would be thumbs up all around because it's what they believe in. Do you think that that is sort of an accurate statement of kind of like what can happen with these very, it's like just a truth that like resonates, a simple universal truth that resonates with this crowd?
I think usually it's your universal truth that a lot of people are resonating with. But the way I think about it is like, there's two types of content on LinkedIn that you can go after. It's like the keynote at a conference, which you have to go a little bit more broad because there's going to be 50 to 60,000 people at a keynote at a marketing conference, for example. But then there's also like breakout little pods at a conference that is more like niche. If I deeply want to understand email marketing, I can go there. So like what you're doing right now is like, I'm giving a keynote twice a week about that, something that more broad. And then I'm also giving breakout sessions 5 times a week that people can go listen to, that are more niche, can go listen to more of the thing. And then to your other point is like, a lot of people are not ready to buy right now. A lot of people have the perceived pain point that your business has right now. So the best thing you could do in marketing, in my opinion, is just always be in their head. So whenever they need something that is your problem, they'll come to your business. So if you can just be in their head multiple times a day, whether it's with a broad post or a niche post, if you just show up daily and you're in their head and owning their mind space, then when they have that perceived problem that your business has, they'll be like, oh, retention.com. Oh, I remember I need SMS. I need email. I need to go to retention.com because that's who I see on my feed every single day. Right. And I listen to the podcast, but the people are thinking of this. That's the difference between, there's someone came on my podcast yesterday and had this hot take, but I truly believe, and I'd never heard it framed like this, but like demand generation is just brand marketing. And why they say that is because a lot of demand gen is that people run as demand capture, which means like they just taking existing people who have the pain in the market right now and bring them in their funnel. Yeah. But demand creation is people have to know your brand. They have to be educated on your problem. They don't know who you are. They don't know who your brand is. So you have to keep doing this like top of funnel stuff so people even know who you are, know your brand name before you can take them down this journey to more concise content. So,
right. I love that. It's so like, I'm just sitting here thinking, asking you all these questions. Like if you would have lectured, if you would have given me like this presentation in a PowerPoint 8 weeks ago, I would have been mind blown. You know, I'm so far from thinking about social media in this way, you know, and I just know people that aren't playing the game, like aren't thinking about it this way either. I think it's like a really interesting conversation for people who are like sitting on the sidelines, like contemplating taking the plunge like I did. Right. So
I'll also go back into like, I understand because I know companies have revenue goals. I know companies have to waste time. So like they don't do, but also like you have to say, you need to choose your 10% of your company or 20% of your efforts to something that is brand related. And this is one of the best things to do that is brand related that will help you in the long term to survive as a business 5 to 6 to 7 years.
And you're talking about LinkedIn right now.
Yeah, LinkedIn right now. Right. Organic reach is at a peak in LinkedIn right now. Same as TikTok. Like those are the two platforms where organic reach and maybe YouTube Shorts.
Yeah, and I think that as it was explained in a presentation that I watched in this group called Pavilion that I'm in, the CEO, Sam, is in the process of building his LinkedIn brand too. I think I showed his profile, maybe I didn't, but he's working with a coach. The coach said right now, like the eyeballs on LinkedIn are growing and only under 1% of people are creating content on LinkedIn, which is like so different than the balance of creators versus consumers on Instagram, right? Like everybody's creating content on Instagram. So like, I hear that. And I remember I wasn't even doing it at the time, but like when the content creators on Facebook all of a sudden had to pay to reach their own audiences, like they were like up in arms about it. And I perceive what happened there as Facebook 10 years ago was at the same position LinkedIn is now. There were way too little content creators for the amount of eyeballs on the platform. As people observed brands and creators on Facebook succeeding creating content there, then the balance flipped. And the supply demand was such that you had to start paying, rather than basically getting content pulled out of you for free and distributed to everybody, you had to actually pay to get at the top of the distribution priority list, even to your own audience, which I'm sure as people listen to this podcast, they see what people like me and this guy, Sam from Pavilion, and several other people who I've been talking to recently, like everything you're saying makes sense, right? It intuitively makes sense what's happening on the LinkedIn platform. If you're doing B2B in particular, your audience is there, right? So why not do it? And then as more people do it, have success doing it, it's going to flip and we're going to have to pay to reach our audiences.
I think there's also an inherent flip that's happening in the market too, that like, it's not only that. I think the inherent flip is like people are not trusting institutions as they used to back in the day. Like they used to, when you used to go back in the day and trust as a buyer, you used to be like, oh, I'm going to go to Gartner. Oh, I'm going to go to like these third party things. I'm going to trust like a business for my HubSpot for my content. I'm going to go to these platforms to go. Now people are going to like Justin Walsh, Chase Diamond, it's Rodell, like all these people, they're going to certain people. And so the inherent flip is that like people have less trust for brands. So the way to kind of counter that is have people in your company become like the faces of your company. So people feel like they're working with someone that they trust instead of just a faceless brand.
I mean, that is exactly the read that I had. So just personally, I think we're in the position to absolutely win the market for what we're doing. There's no direct competitors right now. Our indirect competitors are trying to sell to way bigger companies than like we want to sell to. So the market's totally underserved in what we're doing. And I think it would just take a long time for a new company to like catch up to the feature set that we have. And okay, so you're sitting there, you're like, well, then what is the problem? It's like awareness, because it works for pretty much everybody. So it's like, okay, then what do we need to do? It's like, people need to learn about the brand. They need to learn about the stories of the brand, right? Like what is it, right? And then it's like, well, what's the quickest way to build trust in a set of stories? It's definitely a person, right? I bought a huge domain to help with brand, but it's going to be way easier for me to get connection to human beings as Adam Robinson, the CEO of retention.com, than to try to like tie these ideas to that logo, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially given the fact that social media is a platform where you have to do it all on now, right? Social media is not set up for people to connect to a logo. It's set up for people to connect to a face and the ideas associated with that face.
And the number one thing for content in B2B right now, like what wins is expertise.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, content has been just and I'm not saying shout out to a lot of good content market, but a lot of them was just like trying to be the best for the algorithm and copy some blog posts, tweak it and make it better. But it wasn't like a deep expert was coming in. Like for example, I worked at Service Titan, for example, some of our audience were plumbers, some of our audience were electricians. So we had people who were actually plumbers like help us create content to resonate with plumbers. Like
Yeah.
the problem is a lot of people don't have that. And you are creating expertise for retention.com, which is inherently shows that like you understand the subject, which inherently say like, oh, if he understands the subject, then I must go with this product because they understand that my pain, they understand what I'm going through in a day. If you can't portray that as a brand, like it's hard to win.
Yeah. I hear that. So double clicking down on something you said maybe 15 minutes ago. Do you have the right followers? How am I supposed to figure that out? Like right now I'm getting followers. Do I literally look at the comments and the likes and just see the titles of these people, like do it by hand? Or is there another way? Like,
Yeah.
how do you think about that?
Yeah. So if you go, like, if you create a mode on in your thing, in your profile, you could see that or in your post, you could see like this many marketing specialists, this many people like
Yeah.
are looking. So that's one way that I would look. Also, what I've been doing is like a good way is like having and I wish I did this earlier and I'm giving this advice now, but like start building an email list. Because an email list will start saying like, oh, I have these raving fans. They're in this
Right.
niche coming on my email list. I'm headed down the right path. Like,
Right. Cause like a bot is not going to subscribe to your email list.
exactly. And so
You
like
know?
for me, like on the Market Millennials, at least on the company page, I started seeing that the number one following group was 60% marketers. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I must be heading in the right
Yeah.
direction. Like 60% of my audience is marketers.
It's the
Then the
same
other-
as the last word of the group, right? Like,
Yeah. It's like
of the title.
60% of marketers. And then the next was like business development. And the next was like
Yeah.
media. Like,
Yeah,
so there was like a
still
bunch of-
relevant. Yeah.
Okay, everything was relevant. So I was like, I'm heading down. Then I looked at the comments, but also like you'll notice that like, and this is very true, like your content is also a good signal that you are in the right direction and people liking it. Cause if you don't get engagement on your content, then you probably don't have enough people in your audience that care about what you're talking about. Cause to be honest, like I've liked posts from my own thing for someone else's post and it won't go viral. Like it won't help. But so if I like from Daniel Murray to another, it would say the same, but I sometimes like someone else's post and it's helped them go viral. And I know that if I like someone who in marketing, it will go viral. If I don't like someone in marketing, it won't go viral because inherently I only have marketers and most of my audience is marketers.
Yeah.
So that's a way to tell like,
Yeah, like
is
if
your
you like
content
some-
resonating, is your content resonating with people? Then yes, it's working. Like you're getting engagement, you're getting followers. Like
Yeah.
people won't follow you if they don't like your content. That's just
Yeah.
how it works. That's how social works.
Yeah. So like to recap that, it's like, if you liked a post that like Tommy made about like, he always loves to talk about like, people think a social media person should be a generalist or whatever. It's like and his audience loves that, right? So if you liked that, it would probably do okay. But if you liked something about like engineering, it probably wouldn't go anywhere because your audience
Exactly.
doesn't
My
care.
audience doesn't care. My
Yeah,
audience doesn't
totally.
care. And I
Totally.
think, and that's just people don't get like one, the algorithm doesn't have any feelings at all. Like it doesn't
Right.
care. It just wants to push out the content that more people will like. And like maybe people hate that LinkedIn pushes out tweets and pushes out this stuff, but that's what more people are engaging with. Like it's just,
Right.
it's just
It's
how
just reality. Yeah.
it's reality. And it's also like, it's not that crazy to think about because people are like thinking that on LinkedIn, but they will go scroll on their Instagram feed right now and send 8 memes to their friend today.
Right.
Like they will,
Yeah.
and they won't, they saying like, why do that on LinkedIn? Because also LinkedIn, like people are inherently people on LinkedIn. You just switching up the narrative from being like, I'm giving you more of a personal post on Instagram of like something you care about in your regular life. Like I drink a lot of coffee. Coffee does this to like,
Right.
to like marketing and making more reality to marketing. So like their mindset when they're on LinkedIn is like, I'm a marketer right now, but they still a human being who thinks things are funny, who go to happy hour, who are probably on their couch scrolling, watching House of Dragons and on LinkedIn for fun, and then sending their post to their coworker, like, oh my God, this is a funny marketing post.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people just don't get, is just like, the reason why I do it is I started thinking like, I just want to give people a quick break in their LinkedIn feed. Like they get enough like in-depth posts of people. And also a lot of people who do in-depth posts, that's their only medium to create content. So I applaud them. They can write long form, but I also create a long 3 newsletters a week. I create a podcast. I don't have that much time to just dedicate perfect posts on LinkedIn. And that's another thing I'll say too, is like, if you can't create great for a medium, like a great hook, then you shouldn't be creating on that medium long form if you don't know how to do that. Like, and sometimes I don't have time to do it, so I just don't do it.
So I have a couple things to sort of ask about. Let's talk about creating for a medium. So as I mentioned, and by the way, I think that I might get this muscle if I were willing to work on it. But like, man, that text post for me was so hard, right? Like, it was just so hard. And like getting these hooks from Tommy and putting 5 bullets and then just recording me free flowing about the bullets and keeping it under a minute or something like that. It just feels so easy, right? So I just think that's a good example of what natural gravitation towards a medium feels like for people, right? It's like, if finding memes to send to your friend feels super easy, then imagery might be your medium, right? If creating these long form LinkedIn things just comes out free flow, I mean, then that might be your medium, right? Like, is that sort of...
Yeah, that's one thing. But I also think a lot of people like just don't take time to learn the rules of the game and spend time on the platform before like consuming. So like it's like going on TikTok, never watching one TikTok video and saying, I'm going to post a TikTok video. So what a lot of people just don't do is spend time and go, look what the best are doing on the platform. Look at, why is their post working? Why are they don't? Like, and actually reverse engineer and then try to do it for themselves. That's also, but also to your point, I think a lot of people, like Dave Gerhardt, you mentioned earlier, you read his book, like he's very good at video and he's good at written word, but his video is really good because he studied copywriting, he studied hooks, and he studied all these things to do that. But if you just study that's why Chase's stuff works well and stuff like that. But if you just study inherent like copywriting, like if you took what you knew from ads and made it a LinkedIn post and just switched up a little bit, like every ad needs a hook. And then every ad
that was literally going to be the next thing that I went into. Like, let's talk about the anatomy of a post and how close, like, of a written, I mean, the meme, let's forget that for now, but like, what's the anatomy of an ad and how does it compare to the anatomy of a post, right? In terms of just like hook body CTA, like is that something that we think about in LinkedIn posting as well?
Yeah. So the funny part is that, and you know this from being an ad guy, for the last like 10 years, a lot of the best ad people who won because they understood how to target people better than others. Right. And that's why they won. Now, the best ads are going to start winning is the ones who understand that you need a good copy that hooks the readers. You need a great image or a great video or a great creative to make sure that, and then a CTA that is compelling enough, or an offer that's compelling enough to get someone to take the next step. Yeah. So like, let's go take that to like LinkedIn, like, and also it worked. This is why tweets work. Tweet is basically that imagery and copy, just not in a text format. Like if you think about it, it's just a hook and an image that stands out in the feed that just disrupts someone. So that's one way to do it. And we used to do this on LinkedIn ads back in the day that worked very well at Snack Nation. But the way you would think about writing posts and everything is like, okay, let's think about the hook first. And every platform, the hook needs to be a little bit different. For LinkedIn, you need to optimize for the see more button. So the first line needs to be very compelling, that it either creates like, oh, this person, it's relevant to me. Oh, this excites me. Oh, this is controversial. Like, why is this person saying it? It has to invoke some sort of emotion or a curiosity or something that makes sense. And then if you go down to the next couple lines, it's kind of like the setup before you start going into the meat. So it's like you write a good first line, and then the second line is be like, but well, here's how I did it. Like you start like teasing it a little bit, and then you go into what the post is. And then the meat is like, okay, once you got them to see more, now you can start giving more inherent detail of like what you want to talk about. Like, and then the way you do that is how I think about it is every line has to make someone want to read the next line. So you have to write every line in tenfold. And then it's like this. That's why on LinkedIn, like the choppy works, because it's like it's short, it's readable, but it also brings someone to the next line, to the next line, to the next line. And then for a couple of things, it's like you either want to wrap for the end part of the thing, you either want to wrap it up and say like, give them something that's actionable to take away, like a takeaway of that. So you wrap up what you said quickly, like the takeaway of this is X, Y, and Z. Or you want to say like, help people engage on the post. So you say, what do you think about this? So then they start commenting and more people will there. Or you do something like, hey, if you want to hear more about this topic, come listen to my podcast. There's a full episode here. So then it's a CTA to do something either actionable, like the reader needs to take action to go do this today. The reader needs to take action to go comment, or the reader needs to take action to go listen to something more. There's something that wraps it up at the end to make someone do an action. And that's the same exact thing as an ad. It has to, and then, but also what works is you have to be writing great copy. Like it has to be great copy. It has to be it has to be interesting that people are perked up to read. Like I think Joseph Sugarman in Adweek Copywriting Handbook says like the pretty slide. And first line, second line, and these principles, like the first line needs to be so compelling that people read the second line, the second line. And then also like what I noticed with a lot of people, like, they spend so little time like perfecting the first three lines, and that should be the most time you spend. Actually, the bottom of the post, like people read less of. Like the goal is to get someone to read a lot, to get people, so the algorithm says, oh, this is interesting. Right. Like more people are like clicking, spending time on this post.
Yeah, they're clicking see more, there's whatever. Yeah.
And you take that on TikTok too. Like if you have a hook and get someone to get past the 3 seconds, and they will read it, they'll listen to the video more. And then if you create a loop at the end to make it read more, that makes the algorithm say, oh, someone cares about this video more. If you're doing Twitter on a thread, the first tweet on a thread is so compelling to get someone to read the next tweet. And then every tweet needs to be formatted as a tweet. So you just have to take these principles and make it for the medium. And I think a lot of people don't do that.
I mean, this is gold, dude. This is so awesome. How important do you think the pattern interrupt is? I mean, basically you just said, that's my whole business. I'm trying to give people a break, like from all the rest of sorry, not your whole business. Like you're like, my LinkedIn philosophy is I want to give people a break for a second, which like that may or may not mean pattern interrupt in your mind. To me, based on what I see on my feed in LinkedIn, that's definitely pattern interrupt, because it's a bunch of people, pontificating on God knows what, right? Like how important, like if somebody's starting today, are you like try to be pattern interrupt on every post, or or is it like, what I mean?
No,
like, and how intense is it pattern interrupt just with the provocative hook, or like, is it pattern interrupt, full stop? Like, what do you think?
I think you need, like in everything, tell people, this is a general marketing principle. It's like, you need to figure out how to be different in the platform to stand out. Like, And like the late tweets when I started were a differentiator for me to stand out. I think there's
Right.
also a lot of different ways you could try things. Like
Right.
video for you is a way for you to stand out
Yeah.
that a lot of people aren't doing. I think when someone's starting, like they either have to be such a great copywriter that like that their content has such great hooks, but I do say like the thing that everybody should practice the most is like how to simplify the first line to get people to so interested that they either want to read more. The tweet is a little bit easier because what I try to do is make it so simple that that idea is so simple that people want to share it like
Right.
right now. And
Yeah.
that's what I like. And it's just so easy to share. Like I could take this in a group message. The problem with the long LinkedIn post, and this is the truth about long LinkedIn posts, is like it's hard to screenshot and send it to a friend.
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't make it easier to send a DM of a LinkedIn post to someone. But if you have a video like yours, it's easy to send a video and a group
Yeah,
text
yeah,
to
yeah.
someone to read. It's easier to it's easier to take a screenshot of. So how I think about like posting or newsletters or anything is like, one, would I share this post in a group text message with all my marketing friends? Yes or no? That's like the
Right.
first thing I think about. Like, would I share it in a group text? If I wouldn't, is this a cool enough idea to share? And if it's not, then I don't. And I think I've got to the point, and I think the way to to start learning this is, one, you have to consume a lot of good content to get to good content. Like it's like, that's how it works. Like you
Yeah.
just have to understand your audience. And second, I think for what I was saying before, that I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I do think when you're starting off, you need to figure out how, one, what is your niche? What do you want to be known for? Two, like, how could I be different with my story, my hook, my format to stand out in the feed? Three, is this compelling enough to be shared? Yes or no? And that might not be your intention. My intention is keep people on LinkedIn, but I think like my whole intention is like marketing is a game of attention. That's just what it is. Like you're
Yeah.
fighting for people's attention the whole time. Like you're playing with the currency of attention. Some of it's cheap attention and some of it's great attention. Like, but you're still battling the mind of attention. A lot of people consume cheap attention. A lot of people
Yeah.
consume, but LinkedIn is just the problem with LinkedIn. Why I do mine is like, I inherently know that LinkedIn does not feed me the content I want all the time.
Yeah.
So it's harder for me to consume on the platform. So I make it easier for people to consume on LinkedIn. On
Right.
Twitter, I know that it's curated to followers that I know. So it's easier for me to consume. So I can do more in-depth stuff. On
Right.
TikTok, it's even more important to do what you should be doing on LinkedIn that should be working, but it's not because LinkedIn just doesn't, their feed sucks. Like that's the
Right.
problem. And,
Yeah.
and I don't think it will ever improve until it's like interest-based feed where like people
Right.
you're fed like marketing content because you're a marketer.
Yeah. So what is
it's
it now
all-
if it's not interest based? It's just all
It's
your
follower,
followers?
but
Right.
yeah,
The
your
following is
followers.
weird because you just kind of follow people when you're connected and like whatever.
Exactly. And Instagram's like that too. Like why Instagram has been going through a trouble is like, you don't care what your best friend's friend in high school is doing anymore with their life, married with kids, and you don't need to see another baby pic.
Right.
Like it's not interesting to them. But 10 years ago it was interesting because you were in a group with those people. You saw them every day. Like it was cool. You guys were good friends. But now like, that's why TikTok's winning right now, because it's not feeding you those pictures you don't care about. It's feeding you like, oh, you like sports? I'll feed you some sports content. Oh, you
Right.
like marketing? I'll feed you marketing content. And that's why TikTok's inherently winning, because it's an interest-based graph where like most platforms are follow-based graph where like it's like based on who you follow. You see Twitter a little bit doing this now. It's like starting to feed. If you
Yeah.
follow certain topics, you'll get those certain topics in your
Right.
feed too. But so I'm inherently optimizing that I know that a lot of people are getting bad content out there in their feed
Yeah.
or content they don't care about. That's a better way to put it.
This has been so awesome. We have like 2 minutes left, so let's wrap it up. But thank you for, I mean, these words of wisdom are just like incredible. You may not think it is because you live in the game. Like, I didn't know like 80% of what you talked about today. And it kind of makes sense, but like I just wasn't aware of it, you know? So let's wrap it up with the final five. What's your favorite?
One thing before this, one thing before you go into the final five, is just so funny because the way you just said that is like, to me, I'm trying to simplify it for you to understand it, but like,
Right.
it's new to you. Like, that's
Yeah.
why, like, if you want to simplify what you say to me and start talking to me in a simple way, and I started getting it, like, the simplest posts work because like people just inherently just don't get the subject. That's why
Right.
that blows my mind. Like, you're trying to get people educated in the subject. So that's just
Yeah.
my little rant, like, on that. But we'll go to the final
Incredible.
five.
Yep. Agreed. So, favorite book?
Influenced by Robert Cialdini.
Oh,
Actually, I'll go Alchemy.
what a
Alchemy-
great book.
also-
That's one of my favorites too. Yeah.
Also, Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Like,
Yeah.
it teaches
I
you
like
how
that
to.
one too.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to what? Just finish that thought.
Yeah, it just teaches you how to think differently about, like, not irrationally about marketing, like irrational things work in marketing. And that's how, like, irrational things just get you in the sea of sameness, like, basically.
Right. Cool. Favorite person, could be a CEO, could be somebody else. Favorite person you're following right now?
That's a great question. The favorite person I'm following right now is probably Caitlin Burgoyne, because I really care about, like, I want to learn psychology more right now, and she like helps like distill psychology in marketing in a very like
Cool.
distilled way. So like right now, like, that's the subject I'm interested in learning. So she's the best at telling me about that.
Sick. And married, single, kids. What's your status?
Married. You'll talk to Ari soon, hopefully. So,
Right.
but,
Yeah, next week.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Sweet. Where do you live?
Austin, Texas.
Rock on. We gotta get a beer soon. I didn't even realize that. I've been in Austin too. What's your favorite vacation you ever been on?
Favorite vacation. I would say Australia. I love Australia.
Boom.
And New Zealand was like the same vacation.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel. This has been fantastic. And I look forward to talking to Ari and, getting you back on here again soon.
Thank you. This is great.
All right, man. Take care.